So during all that time that you're kind of shifting around and obviously marching through figuratively, you're like kind of drum corps that you're working with. You're also kind of moving around locationally as far as like what you're doing high school wise as well, correct?
Yeah. I started in, I guess my first job out of college was in Nashville at Harpeth High School.
Which I
Um,
had never heard of until I was internet stalking you, um, doing like some research, and then I stumbled upon some YouTube videos that Bill Bachman had posted, and I knew that the timeline that he posted it was matched like your biography or whatever. And I was just laughing watching these videos of this high school, and I'll let you explain it. But I was just like, first of all, this kid looks like he's 20 in this high school video, and these kids are playing stuff that high school kids do not typically play, and at a level that they for sure don't typically play it.
Yeah, I gotta say,
but the,
anyone that has not seen this, the video's out there. Harpeth, 2009, nine, right, Evan?
10, I think it was 2.
10?
Well, 9 or 10, whatever.
9 or 10,
I
they were
did.
they were good
Yeah.
both years. I mean, he sends me this video today while I'm sitting there working, and I just start laughing alone in my kitchen. Like, it's just dumb. Everyone needs to go check this out. So sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there, Joe. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good, man. No, and I got to give credit to the teacher that was there before me, a guy named Butch Simmons, like a Nashville drummer. It taught lessons at this like small, I'm talking small school. It would be considered a 1A school, maybe 50 kids in the band program, but they had this slam and like four snare, 2 quad, 5 bass drum, probably 9 or 10 in the pit total. They were doing indoor. I wrote drill for them, in like I guess it was '07. They called me in to write drill, and I did that. And I think the director Butch was trying to take a step back, and they called me like, "You want to kind of be the percussion director?" Which would mean I would teach there full time in the middle school at the high school, and just do lessons to kind of create a salary pretty much for myself and write the show stuff, for the fall and for the winter, and write the drill, kind of do it all in house. And I did. I took the job, but the kids could play, and they were young. Like my first year, the guy who you're talking about that looks like he's 20 was a sophomore. And then we had this little freshman, James Bivens. I remember him, just killer player. And they just had hands, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we just kept pushing. It's one of those things when you're like, man, these kids are silly good. And I just kept feeding them exercises. And I kind of had to figure out a process. Like I know we'll get to Vandergrift stuff here probably in a little bit, but I kind of had to sit down and write an exercise packet for the first time by myself. You know what I mean? To kind of figure out a structure. And we did that. And it was me by myself. I taught the pit. I taught the battery. I wrote the battery and the pit. But we just kind of pushed as far as we could. And the first year we went open class. And the group, I think we won the Indy Regional, the Nashville Regional. And then I think we ended up at 12th in finals. And then the next year, I think we ended up 4th in finals at open class. And then a friend of mine from college took a job at George Rogers Clark up in the Lexington area. And like, who are we going to get to replace? Who's going to take over this gig? Like, these kids are ready to go. Like, they're ready to play. Whoever takes this job has got an easy gig. And I remember talking to Dustin Schletzer again. And man, I think Bill's looking to teach. And I called Bill up and said, hey, you want to check it out? I remember Bill came to a rehearsal and he just took the drum line for like an hour. And he was kind of still on the fence about taking the gig. At least that's what it kind of felt like from my end. And he drummed with him for an hour and he came back in the office. And he was like, I'll take the gig. I think I can make this work. And it was like, it was cool. So I still wrote, and for me, it was so awkward. I'm writing quad parts for Bill. And I'm like, which is like, I'm just going to put it on drum too. Like, Bill, I know I'm not going to write the rounds, man. You just got this. And I did the indoor show for him too. And I think the video you're referencing is the fall show. And I remember writing that drum solo in like the back of a car, like on the way to something with our family, like just cranking it out. And then Bill reworks some of the stuff, especially the quad rounds. And the kids were just fun. And I remember getting texts all year because I was moving to Kentucky at the time. Getting texts all year, people being like, "Dude, what is going on? These kids are silly." And it was just a fun group, man. Awesome students, great situation. And Bill's obviously a fantastic teacher as well. And it was a good time.
Awesome. So you briefly did a brief stint, came back home to Kentucky. Then when did you make the trek down to Texas?
I think that was 2012, I think, was my first year in Texas. Like I said, the Kentucky thing, I'm still good friends with that guy today, but it just wasn't necessarily the best situation. The feeder program and just It was tough. The money was there. Like I was able to. What I was doing in Nashville was kind of what I call the drumline hustle, which I was doing. I was teaching at Austin P State, their drumline. I was teaching at Harpeth. I was kind of putting all these pieces together to kind of create a salary. And what GRC came to me at with was, we will pay you pretty much a band director salary to just come here and be our guy. And that was very intriguing to me. And it was like, I was trying to get married at the time, so looking for some stability. And I took the job, but I just realized it wasn't, in the long run, wasn't going to be the right thing. And again, Eric Johnson, we're at the Nashville Regional, and Eric pulled me aside in Westfield High School in Houston. Jason Hall, who used to judge, was leaving Westfield. And I knew their guard director, Casey Michael, through Phantom. And he's like, "Are you interested in this?" I was like, "I don't know. Should I take this job in Texas?" And Eric was really funny. He's like, "Joe, do you like retirement? Do you like health insurance? Do you want to teach drums?" And I was like, "I guess, yeah." He's like, "Go to Texas." So that sealed the deal. And I flew down. We flew to Houston. We checked out the job. We watched that group record for Honor Band, and the wind ensemble was unbelievably good. But it just didn't feel necessarily right. Something was off about it. And then I got a call from, actually the director at Harpeth called me. And then my buddy Eric Willie again at Southwind called and said, "Hey, my buddy Dr. Rob Parks is leaving Newman Smith High School in Dallas. You would love Andy, the head director." And I called Andy, and I'll never forget the conversation. Andy was just like, "Hey, man, we need a guy. The school is real chill." He's like, "I could walk around the school with my pants off probably, and no one would care. Like, you should work here." And I just laughed, and I was like, "Man, that's what I'm looking for. I just want a good environment." You know what I mean? And so I took that job. I didn't even go out to the school. I didn't do anything. I just said, "I'm in." That sold me, that kind of personality, that kind of vibe. And then moved to Dallas in 2012 and have been in Texas since.
So I did a little stalking on the Newman Smith High School too. Also another good program. But we'll jump ahead a little bit because I do want to get into the Vandergrift stuff, just because it's obviously a pretty big staple name in the marching band world in the country, especially of late. And maybe this is just my naiveness of not being super nationally known on all the band, but it feels like it's been pretty much thrust to the top of the last 4 or 5 years. Like, I didn't even know about the school, and all of a sudden I know everything about the school, and I'm watching all these videos on flow marching of these kids, and they're winning BOA Grand National and stuff. So what year did you start out at Vandergrift?
It was 2016. So this is my 6th year at Vandergrift.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's and I think it's funny. Flow marching started in 2016. Flow marching's Austin based. I think kind of all the moons aligned a little bit in terms of the exposure that Vandegrift started to get really quickly. And we also had a big jump up in 16. The group was what we call a 5A school leading up to that. And then 2016 was their first year in 6A, which is with all the crazy good programs in Texas, the Hebrons, the Marcuses, the Flower Mounds, we're all in that 6A category. So that was a state year for us. In Texas, it's kind of weird. Every other year is a state marching contest. So that's kind of what that was. So yeah, it all happened. Everything kind of blew up in 16, my first year. And I just didn't know any better. I just kept working hard and trying to make the group sound good. And, here we are.
Yeah, Texas is such a unique setup for a marching band, because I know a little bit about the UIL scene just because we had our friend Mike Bishop on previously who talked about it at Cedar Park and stuff. And everything with UIL is connected to the state the same way that athletics are, which is not how it is in Kentucky and probably not in a lot of states as well. But the UIL circuit is governed by the same people that govern Texas football, from my understanding.
It's all together. Yeah, it's all one big university interscholastic league, and they do cheer, football, basketball. It's like I said, it's one big governing body for all these extracurricular activities.
And then there's all these districts, I guess it's ISD, Independent School District. I'm not sure what the acronym stands for, but you guys are in the same Leander ISD with Leander and Cedar Park and Rouse and Vandergrift. And I'm just how does all this work? You're not even in the same city, but you're all in the same district, or it's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, it's just, everything's bigger, growing up from a small town in Kentucky, like I said, everything. So a lot of the school districts here, like where I grew up, was Callaway County, and Callaway County High School was its own school district. That was it. It was Callaway County, and that's it. In Texas, you've got these large districts that are just feeding large groups of kids. And we're a 6A school, so we have almost 3,000 students. But yeah, in our school district alone, Leander ISD, it's like you said, Rouse, Vista Ridge, just went to Grand Nats, made finals. Another outstanding band program, percussion program. Leander High School, Cedar Park, and we're all just right next to it. We play each other in football. We see each other pretty much every weekend in contest, and I mean every weekend is brutal. No one is bad, and it's motivating and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, you guys do some crazy stuff too with like we'll get into like the Dripping Springs Lone Star things here in a second. But what's the setup like? Because I know Texas is different from a lot of states, or at least especially in those programs that are very prolific in how the kids start. Like, do you work with the middle school at all? Or are you just only at the high school? Do you like communicate with like your feeders and just like teach percussion ensemble all day? What's the gig like?
No, we have 2 middle schools that directly feed to our high school, and that's kind of unique. A lot of times in these larger school districts, you'll have middle schools that feed 2 separate high schools, and kind of a split feeder, as they call them. We're really fortunate at Vandergrift where we have 2 middle schools that directly feed to us. So we know that every kid in that middle school is going to go to Vandergrift High School. I do one middle school, 4 Points Middle School, which is across the street from Vandergrift. And then we actually have someone that kind of helps out, does lessons at the high school, and pretty much does the middle school stuff for us at Canyon Ridge Middle School. Both middle schools are fantastic, great teachers there. Both have played Midwest in the past, I guess. I think 4 Points played maybe 7 years ago. I think Canyon Ridge played, I think, around the same time. But yeah, we're very fortunate to have really good feeders. And that's kind of the secret sauce is if you got good middle schools, your high school is going to be really good. But that's kind of how that works. I do one of the middle schools. Somebody else does the other one. My day is kind of split between Vandergrift High School and 4 Points Middle School.
Yeah, that does really seem to be the recurring theme with other people we've talked to in Texas or California. All the really successful high schools, they all say the same thing, that it starts in 6th grade or earlier. If you've got that whole system in place to start training kids on the fundamentals that early, they're going to walk in at 14 and, in Kentucky where I've taught primarily, it's like 14-year-olds that show up freshman year don't know how to mark time properly. They can't keep their feet in time to 8s half the time. So it's like you're just starting so much farther ahead of everybody when you have that middle school system in place. So at this point, I'm just convinced that that's just the way. That's the secret. It's nothing complicated. It's not rocket science. Just start them young.
No,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's different. Like what I knew probably as a freshman in high school is probably what these 6th graders know in Texas.
Yeah,
because I feel like everything is like shifted up a level of education. Like these middle schools are learning what I probably learned in high school, honestly. Like until I got farther advanced into drum corps, but these high school kids in Texas are doing what colleges are doing. Like the percussion ensemble literature we're programming is college lit. You know what I mean? And the marimba literature these kids are playing, it's nuts, man. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't just look around and be like, this is crazy. Like today, not to go off on a tangent, like today I came home and my wife was like, how's your day? I was like, it was weird. It was awesome. Like we had Jason Fetting, director of the Commandant's Own, was conducting our wind ensemble today. Like he was in Austin. And he came by and conducted, and Omar Thomas, who's a pretty prolific or a composer right now, is commissioned this piece because the wind ensemble's playing Midwest, in December. So, and then we had a girl that didn't show. She was doing a college visit, so I had to sight read this bass drum part on this brand new Omar Thomas. And Omar Thomas is here. He's in the rehearsal. So it's Omar Thomas, the composer, with Jason Fetting conducting, and me playing concert bass drum on this like soca bass, like Brazilian rhythm thing. And it was just like, I was just so surreal. I got home and I was still kind of like on cloud nine. She's like, how was your day? I was like, it was just the strangest thing just happened. But that's just Texas. Like it's weird. These kids are getting so much information and great teaching and great gear. And, and I'll say this too, like there are really bad teachers in Texas too. Like don't get it full. Like it's not like there's all the magical there are fantastic teachers in the Midwest and the rest of the country. But the fact that we get our kids at 6th grade and can start those fundamentals that early really does give us a huge advantage over other programs.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to the California thing. Like, the bands that you know in Texas and like the percussion ensembles that you know in California that are really prolific and stuff like that, you know them because they're really good and they're set up from their feeders. But the ones that you don't know, it's because they're not set up the same way. And my wife is a middle school band director here too, and she's listened to that, and I've listened to several of them too, just being in the same car. Those like after sectional podcasts with those middle school band directors down in Texas. I'm not sure.
Who are also they're in Leander ISD.
There it is. Of course. Yeah. Of course. But I've listened to those too, and them talk about like, oh yeah, when our kids start in these homogeneous classrooms where it's all clarinets for this class, all trumpets for this class, and it's just like, yeah, that makes so much sense when you're getting so much information. It's basically like taking private lessons from 6th grade with here in Kentucky. For most of the state, I'm sure it's pretty similar to like more rural areas where it's like the band director teaches all the instruments at the same time.
Yeah.
And we all learn together.
That's what I grew up with, man. And these kids are like, they're taking lessons.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting that individual attention at a young age with lessons, and they're getting like you said, like it's a percussion class. Like beginner class is percussion class, and we're learning a percussion ensemble right now for our Christmas concert. You know, and it's nuts, man. And I'll be honest with you, not to go on another rant, but like you get in Texas and some of these people are spoiled, and like they're like, "Oh, my kids are terrible," or "This is," and you're like, "You have no idea." You know,
me in 6th grade back there, the teacher's like, "Don't make any noise while I'm teaching." I'm like, "Okay."
Oh yeah, you're just like, you know, like you just don't know. Like I said, growing up, it sounds like you were in a similar situation. Like one guy is teaching the entire 6th grade band at the same time. You know, and that's what it was when I was in Kentucky and in Tennessee, and it's. Yeah, we are blessed. We are fortunate. Someone a long time ago fought all the fights for us and won them. Because, like I said, and we've got multiple directors. You know, it's an unfair, like, at our high school, there were 4 band directors. You know, me being one of them.
Katie Van Doren, March Crown with me. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, that's funny. I was talking about that earlier. She's like, you guys want to go to dinner? Because we had Jason Fetting was in and Omar, and I was like, no, I'm going to go head home and, you know, read stories to the kiddo, and I'm going to do this podcast. And she's like, what is this? The Aged Out podcast. I'm like, and Evan Van Doren was there as well. And they were both like, oh, we know those guys. It's like, awesome. Small world.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, Evan aged out before I got to Crown, but he was around. He was still helping teach. And then Katie was there both years I marched. So I love those people.
Good people. Yeah. But again, we're just very fortunate, man. Very fortunate to teach where we teach and to have the resources that we have.
So Texas is also, I do want to revisit like some Bluecoat stuff here in a minute, but I just still am so fascinated. Like, you guys have a pretty crazy like marching band timeline too, because where UIL, and this is my understanding, like governs marching band, there's all these restrictions on like when you can rehearse as far as like the season, like you have like a dead season, and then like how much you can rehearse. Is that correct?
We have an 8-hour rule during the week once school starts. So we get 8 hours max, and then we also cannot learn drill until August 1st.
What?
So,
so like, man. Do you have like band camp in July where you're just like inside learning music?
We typically do a drum camp usually the 3rd or 4th week of July. And the drums come in first, and so does our vision dance team, which is kind of our color guard, but they don't spin. It's from our dance department. So they're all dancers. They're phenomenal. And Katie Hopkins teaches that, does a great job. But we do a music camp typically with drums, and then the winds typically come in the next week, and then ends up being like 2 or 3 days of just basics, learning how to march, and then we're learning drill usually on August 1st, and then away we go.
Wow. Do you guys do anything like at the semester prior, like the spring semester prior to that fall?
We do what we call our freshman camp, which is we pretty much just do after school in May, usually the 3rd week of May or so. And every night freshmen come over and we start learning show. And we try and play our opener. We put our opener together. At the end of the week on Friday, we do a concert and we play our fall opener. Usually probably 20 clicks under, if not 30 clicks, depending on the year. And just put it out there. But it's just good to get the kids on campus, get them included into our culture, have them drink the Kool-Aid, as we say, and get excited, and then send them off for the summer, and then see them again in late July.
That is just killer. Like, that's so different than here. Obviously, that from being, it's like, all right, July, here we go, band camp, boom, 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 let's go. Yeah, man, that's wild. But sounds like there's just, obviously you have the killer directors and killer staffing. I'm sure. I know JP works with you guys. Funny JP story, and this may be like a slightly Mandela effect thing. I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but I have this memory of me finding his dot book at Cavaliers in 2010, like laying on the ground outside of the bus at Allentown, because we did 2 Allentown shows that year, one at the very beginning and then one at the end. And I just found this dot book and I was like, oh, JP Gaza. I was like, all right. And then I walked on the Cavaliers bus and I was like, hey, I found this drill book out here. I think it belongs to JP, which I guess in like Cavaliers speak is like, I found the Holy Grail. Like, dude, you lost your freaking dot book? Like, you idiot. Like,
no, dude, that was a big deal. I remember in the Fiedler days, if you didn't have your dot book on the field, like, you were in for it, man. Fiedler would sprint down from the stands and get in your face. I mean, it was you never forgot your dot book. So yeah, JP was probably in some serious trouble for not having that.
Well, I guess. Well, it was at the show, and I guess maybe when he was loading his drum up or something, I'm assuming it like fell out of his drum case or something. But I'm not positive that I'm remembering it that was his, but it was somebody's. So if JP hears that, you can confirm or deny that. But
I'll ask him, man. Yeah, we got a great staff, man. And I feel like this year we kind of it all settled in. We had the COVID year, obviously, and but JP helps out with the battery after school stuff, and then Mark Hunter, who moved down during COVID, and Mark's Cavaliers like 97 to 2000 on snare. Killer snare drummer, went to UK. Awesome marimba player as well. Now teaches the front ensemble. Battery arranger with the Colts. So super fortunate to have him. Marcus
Colts
Newdigate
sounded great this summer.
Yep.
Dude, they did. Those guys were awesome. It's all Mystique staff.
I felt like the book was so like appropriate, and not in a negative way, but
yeah.
And they just like played it with really good quality. So I don't know, but
I'll tell him he said that. He's super talented. Does a lot of lessons for us now. And then Marcus Newdigate, I think taught Crown's Pit for several years, kind of some electronic stuff, comes in once a week. And we're just really fortunate to have a lot of older teachers now within our drum staff that just kind of come out because they like to do it. Like JP works at a pharmacy now, does tech stuff. So I think drumline's kind of his hobby, and his escape from,
right.
His daily life. So he comes out and teaches, man, does a great job. Kids love him. And just feel very fortunate. A lot of good teachers. So.
Well, I have one quick high school band related question, and then we'll transition. It'd be remiss if we didn't touch on Bluecoats as an alumni myself. But what's the thought? Why Match Grip?
The guy that was there before me did it. It's not anything more than that. And I get asked that question all the time. And when I went to Newman Smith, it's the same thing. If we'd gone traditional, I think it would have set us back a little bit.
Fair.
And the guy before me, I'll be honest, and I know I've said this a couple times, but was another outstanding teacher, a guy named Paul Pape, and really set that program up. So all the success I think we saw in 16 and 17 and 18 was because the foundation was so strong from what Paul did. And it just didn't seem like it made sense to make the change, and no one cared or has cared on a judge's tape or anything like that. And, it's funny, I actually did a panel discussion on Tuesday with Julie Davila, with Brian Zader, Kenan Wiley. It was about the 6A judging system. And the last question somebody posed was, does match scripts get you less points? Something along those lines. And we just all laughed out loud. And because, again, Marcus High School's match grip, Vista Ridge is now match grip. We're match grip.
Ronald Reagan, Keller.
It's kind of like it's an efficiency thing. I mean, Ungst has had his snare drummers play match grip at Dartmouth for years. Like, it's a utility thing. You can move kids around as needed. They all know how to play the right grip, no matter what drum you've got them playing that year. Like, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, I'm a snare drummer and I love traditional grips, so I'm biased. But from a utility standpoint, like, I definitely get why groups choose that.
And I've always Go ahead, Joe.
I would say it's just, for me, it's just faster. I can hit the ground running because those kids are drumming in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I could just go, versus having to teach the fundamentals of traditional grip, it is an awkward grip to learn, and it takes a lot of time to build those chops. And so it's just, for me, it's just quicker, and we don't have that much time. We have 8 hours a week, and I think, in Texas and in drum corps too, and we're going to get to that, but like we all have about the same time. You know what I mean? Right. Like that's the one thing that's equal between every single group. Talent might not be equal, the book might not be equal, but time is equal. And if I go in match grip, I can move faster and I can be more efficient with my teaching. I think that's the best choice for my students.
Yeah. So, I mean, every time I want to remind myself how difficult it is to learn to play traditional grip when I'm working with younger students, I just put my right hand in traditional grip for a second, and I'm like, oh my God, how did I ever figure this out? This is so, now granted, match grip is ingrained in my right hand at this point, but I just relive the awkwardness of it, and I'm like, oh man, this is odd.
And the only bummer, and to the defense of it though, for traditional grip, the only bummer is I know that my students are at a disadvantage if they choose to go to drum corps.
True.
That's the only negative thing for me. But again, in terms of the overall success of our program, I think match grip sets us up. Not that it's the right answer, but I think it sets our group up the best.
Yep. And I would say too, if your kids are taking private lessons and learning how to play traditional grip outside of normal band time, if they are taught how to make good sounds and play with good technique, they'll pick it up faster no matter what.
I think so. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yep.
I mean,